The Rural Providers Conference is funded and supported by Rural Cap, a nonprofit agency, but its leaders come from the ranks of the sobriety movement. Every 2 years, a married couple is chosen to serve as role models, and when their term is up, they join other couples who have served in that same capacity, and together they help organize the gatherings. And joining us now, one of the couples, the first couple to set this chain of leadership in motion, Doug and Amy Modig, and they helped to launch this movement 34 years ago, and actually maybe before that because there were things leading up to that. But what was the impetus for Rural Providers?
Well, what we wanted to do was to help people help themselves in recovery. And when we had our conversations with the elders, they told us, you know, as you talked about earlier in the show, is that if there's no vision, there's no development. And that, but even more important is that the development that occurs from that vision has to come from within the community.
And what was your vision at the time, Amy, when you were helping to organize Rural Providers?
What I wanted to see was to have our Native communities be a healing place, you know, for their young people. And that's what happened in First and Tyonek, was that we had a large involvement with the young people who were...
Now we have some photographs to show people this span of time, because this was in Tyonek, right?
Yes, in 1986, there's Phyllis Chelsea speaking, and we had this huge talking circle in this beautiful, beautiful building in Tyonek.
And who is that besides you?
And that is Rodney Grant, the star in Dances with Wolves.
So he came to one of the early Rural
In
Providers.
1991.
There you are, Doug, with him.
I was his bodyguard.
What, too many women chasing
Oh man, the
after?
guy was just a star. He was. And
How exciting, though, to have a celebrity there. Now, here you are in Bethel at a later Rural Providers Conference, and with your baby, Charlie. He's there in the
1994.
picture.
yeah,
So, you know, Charlie has kind of grown up in the movement.
he has. You know, in order to help people in recovery, you have to model the behavior that we want. And so we grow leadership by involving our young people from the very, very beginning. So Charlie's been involved ever since the beginning.
Now, one of the things I really enjoy about Rural Providers is the cultural sharing, that people are invited to share whatever talent they have. And here is Charlie sharing his martial arts. You must be very proud to see what he's accomplished, and proud for other people to see that.
Oh yeah, I'm glad I didn't mistreat him when he was young, because he's really good. He's like a third-degree Taekwondo.
But what does this do for the conference?
Well, what it does is it demonstrates to people that this is accessible, and that you know, as they grow, or as young people grow, they can figure out different ways to express themselves.
And I guess people must have a special feeling for Charlie because they keep coming to this conference and they see this young man grow in, you know, a sober, healthy life. You know, one of the things that is also so special is the sharing of ideas. And I know you were very impressed with Northway's presentation.
Yeah, you know, that's development from within, right? And so when Lorraine came and shared with us what their vision was and what they were doing, she, by her sharing, engaged people in a learning process, a great learning process of what to do and how to do it, and demonstrated by her own behavior.
So do you think over the years, as people keep coming to this conference, and some maybe come some years, others not, but it seems more like a family reunion. But Amy, do you think that people continue to grow from bouncing off of each other, sharing ideas?
Yeah, I think that when they come in and they say, and they'll actually tell us, you know, on the street, you know, I got sober in 1987, and you know, they keep coming back to the Rural Providers and they check in on other people who got sober at Rural Providers, and they say, well, I got sober in Seward, or I got sober in Kodiak or Dillingham, and so it gives that ability to link sobriety with all these other people across the state, and it feels like we're sharing this, you know, healthy step forward into sobriety.
How do you feel about the decision to rotate the conference from place to place every 2 years? Sometimes urban or maybe an urban hub, perhaps like Nome or Kotzebue, but then go to a tiny village like Tanacross this year?
Well, it's, you know, a lot of responsibility. And the features that are specific to Tanacross is that it's native. Probably the most, well, one of the more traditional villages that we've worked with around the state. And two, that it's such a heavy responsibility that to continue doing this conference year after year in one single place does a couple of things. One is that it gets tiresome, I'm pretty sure. And the other is that there's no chance to refresh or renew the different issues that people are addressing when they come to a new place.
And I guess the first year people kind of get used to what's going on, and then maybe the word gets around, and then they turn up for the second year.
So far, so good. You know, the people learn during the first year. The second year, almost always, well, always gets better.
So, Amy, what's your favorite part of Rural Providers?
Well, first of all, I wanted to say that in Tanacross, it was just amazing because you had, you know, like maybe 100 people in the community, and they were able to provide every one of the meals, which has never happened before, you know, with any other rural providers.
And
Breakfast.
they actually got a moose for this
Yes,
occasion.
and breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it was, and that had the young people just so involved, you know, cleaning up every little piece of litter in the community, and making sure that they were building tables and chairs, you know, the day before that we came. It was still, you know, working so hard, you know, just making it so special. And what I like the most is the sharing of their traditions, and one of them is the potlatch. And every night they fed the people. And I know next year they're going to, we hope to have it a little bit more easier on their participation, not to make it quite so stressful.
Do you think, though, they'll let you get away with that?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm really proud of Tanacross.
Well, you know, I have to just mention this is because I'm wearing a beaded necklace that and they were giving them out to every woman that was at the conference. And, you know, I just can't imagine how much work it took to get ready for this conference.
Months and months, yeah.
Is that healthy?
You know, being able to share with people is very healthy. And when they're making them, you know, they put their love into them, their positive thoughts, and that they, within a cultural context, sharing in that way helps to create health not only for them but in the future. And it highlights a part that helps people sort of guard their luck. And when you think about guarding their luck within the Athabascan context, it's like you live a good life, you will have a good life. And being able to move forward in that is part of the gift that not only did they give by a necklace, but by making the gift, they also shared with us.
Well, next week we're going to focus more on Tanacross and tell some of their history. But do you think that Tanacross is an interesting village to look at as far as kind of the big changes that from Western society?
Definitely. I think that the kinds of struggles that Tanacross had in their history is really representative of what a lot of communities faced. But our changes didn't start happening until the 20s and 30s. You know, even though our St. Timothy's Athabascan, or the Episcopal Church was built in 1911, we didn't really have a large presence of non-Native people until like 1942, when the World War II brought the Tanacross Airport, and then we had an influx of like 5,000 men that were in a camp there, in encampment, and that's where my dad was able to help build the Alaska Highway.
So boy, so you've got some close connections there. Well, we have just a tiny bit of time left. Has Rural Providers made a difference in your mind?
So far, so good. You know, as far as people have shared with us, you know, that it has in fact impacted their lives and the lives of their children. And, you know, we just pray for a new and better tomorrow as we go along.
All right, well, I want to thank you very much for sharing with us today, Doug and Amy Modig. And we also want to thank those at the Rural Providers Conference who shared their stories with us. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week for part 2 of our trip this summer to Tanacross.